Welcome back to the channel, guys. Today's species spotlight, Chilean blue eagle buzzard, or the black-chested buzzard eagle, or the Chilean blue eagle. That's why we have Latin scientific names. It's got a lot of English names, but for sure, this is a bird that a lot of people want to try. Very few people have flown, and here in the UK, for sure, it's a bird that is mostly flown at places like this, falconry centres and falconry display outfits. But if you've got the right land, or land that's not quite right, but it's versatile enough, this bird can make one heck of a falconry bird. This bird will hunt hares off the fist, but if you want to really, I'm going to say fly this bird properly, whether for experiences and education, displays, or proper falconry, hunting falconry, you need slopes, you need updrafts, depending where you are, decent thermals, but certainly in Britain, you need updrafts of air, because this is one of the most ultimately designed soaring birds in the world, certainly of the bird of prey sort of group. And for it to be really successful and stand out from the crowd, this is a bird to hunt from the soar. So if you're in Scotland, the hills of Wales, or somewhere rugged where the wind blows a lot and it hits upwards from the mountains or tree lines, this is a bird like no other in falconry. So keeping and housing, once this bird's trained, man down, flying well, doing its job, understands its purpose, this bird will be perfectly well kept, tethered in the mews in the evening and weathered out during the day. It will take readily to being kept free lofted like this, very readily. Being a buzzardy eagle, it has those attributes of being quite a chilled out sort of member of the falconry community, if you like. And when it's on its downtime, very chilled out birds indeed. As always, whether you're free lofting or keeping tethered, ultra special care needs to be sort of thought about to the design of its aviary, the design of its mews, so you keep your bird in tip-top condition. You don't want any feather tips damaged, no train feathers damaged. Well, however you keep and handle your birds, just like any other, you're looking for perfection. And birds that break their train, like goshawks and others, it's your handling of the bird and it's your housing of the bird, not fighting with game. 99% of the time, a goshawk or such that breaks its train feather whilst taking quarry has already creased and damaged that feather because of your lack of understanding of its housing or handling. I don't say that as I talk down at you. Here at the Falconry Centre, I've inherited a lot of free lofts, mews and aviaries, many of which I've constantly modified over the last 5 years to try and prevent our birds tipping feathers and breaking trains, whether it's the front mesh, what they can see, the perching, and so on and so forth. So there's an example. There's Kyle's eagle. It's peaceful and quiet here. I've just walked in and he's had a little moment. Can he break his feather tips if he has a moment like that on this chain link fencing? Yeah, probably can. Chain link fencing, don't put that on the front of your enclosures. That is for sure. Most of ours has been ripped off and changed for bounce netting. So housing, treat it like any other bird, but its calm nature, once one's settled and maturing for sure, keep it how you see fit, but pay particular attention to its condition. But as you can see, a very chilled out species indeed. So in the background there, you heard my young Harrishook Henry screaming away. That Chilean blue eagle buzzard, when he was in his juvenile spotted and brown plumage, they look totally different as juveniles. They take a few years, like big birds, eagles, sized birds do, to mature and get their full adult plumage. That was, good timing, that was the most vocal, incessant screamer with the worst penetrating scream of any bird I've ever known in the world of falconry. Like any big, slow to sort of grow up mentally bird, we're talking eagles really, if you can leave it with their parents a bit longer, definitely do that. He came from Jemima's many years ago, and at the time she was quite adamant that bird was to get out of there quite early on, and I can't remember, I think he was 13 weeks old. I could be lying here, but he was a lot younger. We wanted maybe 20 weeks, let him sort of have a bit more time fully penned and fully grown up before we took him for training. I had nothing to do with his initial training. I didn't run the Falconry Centre then, but I was around the place all the time. And that bird quickly became an incessant screamer, despite being fully parent reared. My God, if you get a Chilean blue and you keep it at home and it turns out like that, yeah, your neighbours will mutiny and they will probably string you up. They can scream and they can make a red tail screaming incessantly seem beautifully song-like by comparison. Do your research, do your work, avoid that vocalisation. Perfectly timed at all costs. I've been wanting to make this film for a while now about this amazing bird of prey. So not that long ago, just a couple of weeks ago, I commandeered Emily while she was out flying the Chilean blue. We had no guests in, the wind was blowing. I said, can I just come out and do a bit of live filming, get that bird's stoops, you know, framed on camera for an up and coming video, which I did. Went really well. I even laid on the floor so you guys could get a different angle, seeing the bird really coming down vertically to the glove. Yeah, it turns out I've deleted all the footage, freeing up space on my phone. Emily sent me some stock stuff, some stock images that she's built up over the years or recent months of both the bird and it flying. So I'll overlay. We've got some B-roll. It just wasn't the B-roll I thought I had. One thing they have got is a huge gape. These things, if you know anything about ferruginous buzzards, ferruginous hawks, you would have heard stories or known yourself that if a ferruginous catches game some way off, by the time you get there, it is going to have eaten pretty much everything it wants. They just rip and gulp huge quantities of food. Chilean blues, very similar, very similar. They have a huge gape. They can scoff all kinds of things, and if need be, they sure do eat pretty quickly. Foot-wise, they're big. This is a male, remember. The female, like most raptors, the feet are immensely noticeably bigger, as is the size of the bird. Look at those feet. This is a male, I don't know, they're like, I'm gonna say big Finnish goshawk feet. Females, bigger span, stouter. This is a really capable bird. Now, of course, you can argue it's not a buteo, it's not directly the buzzard family, but it is more of a buzzard than it is an eagle. But to anyone looking up in the sky at birds, it's an eagle. It's a huge, with a hugely thick set, weighty and huge on the wing bird of prey. Predatory, rapacious hunter. It's an eagle in what it does, how it looks, everything else. But classificationally wise, it is a buzzard. But do not let that put you off. Red-tailed buzzards, they are not like our common buzzards in the UK. Red tails have formidable footwear. Chilean blues, they take that to a whole nother level. This is a capable bird and mammal hunter. Absolutely. Don't be put off by anyone saying you've got a buzzard. This is a hunting machine, and it can take good sized quarry and a very, very wide range of game. Okay, I'm back. As always, just been mowing the lawn. I kind of film these videos on the day where we're shut here. That means a maintenance day of the week. I've mowed the lawn, got absolutely soaked in I'm going to say an April shower, but it's May now. Been a warm day. I've also fed my rare smooth snakes, grass snakes and viperine snakes. So they've had some food. First feed since they brumated or hibernated in October. Can you believe it? Anyway, back to the Chilean blue eagle buzzard. Let me get my breath. Let me tell you a bit about flying these amazing birds. Let's talk about what they offer us here at Icarus Falconry as an experience day bird or a falconry display bird first. And then I'm going to touch on hunting. And believe you me, here in the UK, these are, I don't know, an underrated hunting bird, like an unknown hunting bird. Very few people taking up the challenge of hunting with these birds. So what does our Chilean blue offer us on experience days? Well, like a lot of buzzards and eagles and vultures, soaring birds really, you could first think, oh, a bit lazy, but it's not. It's intelligent. It's really evolved to conserve calories, like most of your buzzards, your vultures, your kites and your eagles, because they can gorge feed. But a lot of these birds, they struggle to find food, certainly on a daily basis. So they've got to use their brain to find food without wasting calories. So a Chilean blue will quickly train you to turn it into a rubbish bird for displays. If you reward it for doing rubbish, pathetic flights, hop up off the ground, off a post to you, and that's what it does regularly, that's it. That's what it's going to do. You will never tap into the amazing potential of the soaring bird that you have in front of you. This is how we work ours. Horizon only soars and stoops from a vertical pitch to the glove of our guests or to Emily, our falconer, in a display when it's windy. This bird, as I said earlier, is so ultimately designed to actually soar. We say a kite's a kite because it's like a kite. These things are like a kite. Their tail and their wing, they've got a really deep wing. Those secondaries on the wing really pull back far. Their tails have quite a short tail, and the back edge of the wing just joins up with the tail. It's like one huge wing, and it can soar or just moving the tips of those wings a tiny bit. They'll only do that when it's windy or when there's hot thermals. They come from somewhere warm, don't they? Warmer than here most of the time, I'm sure. But the wind is their friend. They're designed to harness the power of the wind. So when it's flat calm, asking your Chilean to go up and up, flapping its wings, beating its wings for all it's worth, higher and higher and higher, to get to a pitch so you can wow at the stoop, it's just not going to happen. It's stupid for the bird to do that, isn't it? All that effort when really it's designed to make no effort really and ride the wind. So you've got to play to its strengths. You can't, with falconry on the whole, we just work with a bird's natural behaviour or its natural abilities. We can't, it doesn't matter what happens, we can't cajole them into doing something they physically can't do. So this is how we've learnt to work with Horizon, because what happened 5 years ago when I took over, Jack and I took over running Nicholas Falconry, Horizon would only get flown when the wind was blowing, and when the wind was blowing the right way to give him lift off his favourite patch of trees. He wasn't really flown on the days when it wasn't windy, because when they tried it, he kind of didn't do anything. And then they were kind of rewarding him for being rubbish, but for doing easy stuff, flying to a tree and coming back. So if you can reward him well from flying to a tree and coming back, he's never going to soar. It's counterproductive. I can just fly, flap, flap, glide to the tree, 50 yards away, not even that, come back, get the same amount of food. So you've got to work with their intelligent brain. Birds of prey, they vary in their intelligence. The Chilean blue, we fly here. When the wind's blowing, we take our guests and him to a field where the wind hits a corner of a copse. So he's actually got 2 to 3 angles he can find lift, depending on the way the wind's blowing. When he goes up, he's rewarded with pretty much a day-old cockerel. That size food, a big chunk of food, not a little betchin'. 3 or 4 times, if we can get 5 soaring flights and 5 stoops to our 5 guests maximum, we're happy with that. And he'll get a big chunk of chick or even a whole chick if he does a really good one. So he learns, if I go up, it's worth it. It's worth the faffing about, gliding off to the copse, getting lift on the updraft, circling round, coming overhead to the hand signal. We always use these hand signals with 2. I can't do 2 hands, I've got a camera. 2 hands. So this is how we train all our soaring birds. Maybe I'll do a video. This says our hands are empty. Our hands are empty. There's no food. You've got to keep going up. There's no point coming and trying to dummy us. If the bird stoops and lands, we'll get it to land. There'll be no reward there at all. Don't let the birds bully you. Soaring birds, bald eagles especially, they'll bully you and think, I'm coming back now. Get the glove up, get some food. I'm coming back. Block them from hitting your face if they're that kind of bird, like a bald eagle. No reward. Let them drop on the floor, walk away. They'll learn. They're intelligent enough. He gets good rewards for doing a good stoop on a windy day. When there is no wind, or the breeze is definitely not sufficient, we don't take him there. We don't try and flog a dead horse. We don't try and get the bird to do something it is not going to do. Probably that it could do, but it's definitely not going to do. So we take him to a completely different field, a sheltered field with a tree line, and we fly him like a very basic Hawk walk, Harris hawk. He flies away across the field to the trees and he flies back and lands on our guest's glove. Absolute rubbish compared to a soaring, stooping flight to a guest. The guests don't know that. They're flying a Chilean blue eagle buzzard for the morning. That beautiful greyish blue beauty, a bird like nothing they've ever seen. And it's flying back to them and alighting on their glove. They've never had a falconry experience before. And now they're getting a blue eagle to fly to them. Absolutely fantastic. And he understands in that field, he does that work, he gets the equivalent of a chick leg for each one. He also understands when the wind's blowing, he's got no excuses. He goes away and gets lift. He does a great stoop. When we're ready, we'll keep telling him, keep on going higher. Well, you're not getting anything yet. You empty your hands. And then he'll get a big reward. These birds are more than intelligent enough to do that. Now, on a side note, he's several years old now, this Chilean blue here, Horizon. At outside events or even displays here in front of a crowd, he just cleared off. He'd go and sit somewhere. He didn't want to come back to an arena-style setting. He didn't want to come back to a crowd. He's always worked. Ever since then, we're just 5 people and a few people watching. 10 max. Emily this year has said, Dave, I really want to fly him at our weekend displays. More people should witness this Chilean blue stoop. It's jaw-droppingly spectacular. Jaw-droppingly spectacular. More people should see it at the weekends when it's windy. And I said, look, he's several years old now. You're kind of teaching old dog new tricks. He doesn't like crowds. He's not going to do it. So, oh, please, let me try. Let me try. I really want people to appreciate it. Lo and behold, off she went. She's already flying Wurzel, my bald eagle. She cracked it. And our biggest crowd is at Easter. My God, was he fantastic in front of a crowd. Didn't bat an eyelid. So you can teach some of these old dogs new tricks if you put the work in, for sure. So that's him in a display and that's him for experience days. If you've got a Chilean blue or a bald eagle or a steppe eagle or a tawny eagle and you're a falconry centre and you fly that bird backwards and forwards to a glove to people to see for your guests on experience days, my God, you are missing the point of these terrific soaring species. The same as if you have a vulture and you let it run around on the floor for tidbits and get a few laughs. These things have the factor, vultures. We want to give vultures a wow factor. You can't do that, getting them running around on the floor. We've been showing them running around on the floor in every wildlife documentary for 50 years. Get your birds soaring that soar, kites included. Then the beauty unfolds. Then the majesty and then the wow factor. But let's go to hunting with a Chilean blue. What can they hunt? Well, I can tell you some things they can hunt because Horizon goes hunting. None of us take him hunting. He just, he can see quite a bit up there. And if there's the right kind of quarry, he can't help himself. That is the downside when you've got a bird upon the soar. Once it learns that things with feather and fur are edible, you might have it going off. Because if you're 500 feet up and there's a crow feeding on a cowpat, it's well disadvantaged. If there's a little bunny way out from the nettles and you're up there, you can see it. If there's a hen pheasant moving around, its camouflage is blown, it can see it. So how do you stop that? Well, you don't fly your soaring display birds as your hunting birds. Number one thing. You can't soar a golden eagle and tell it to leave sausage dogs alone half a mile away if you spend all winter hunting big game with it. It's just ridiculous. It's not worth the risk. My soaring birds for displays do not get food with fur and feather on. Skin your rabbit legs if it's going to have something like that. Yes, a white rat's fine. It's not going to see one. Day-old chicks, it's not going to see them. But if you're feeding it wild-caught game like pheasant or rabbit, take all the coating off them so they don't look too familiar. It's always worked for us. But for the Chilean blue, he got the taste of food early on. He used to do some setups on dead prey for photography days. He worked out feathers and fur mean meat. So when ours is up high, if there are crows feeding on cowpats, if there are young pheasant poults are the worst, they just haven't got a clue. That time of year, the pheasant poults on the estate are skulking around. We don't have rabbits here now. They're just coming back from VHD. But when we did and the rabbits were sitting out, all those things, the Chilean blue has caught off the soar. You can't stop them. They've got massive feet to take game on the ground, fur and feather. This is how I would want to hunt with a Chilean blue. Personally, I would never get a Chilean blue for hunting unless I lived where it could slope soar. If I lived in the hills and the mountains, there can't be much to beat falconry with a Chilean blue waiting on in absolute blowing gales while you and your dog are working the ground below, flushing hares or rabbits. I imagine even game birds on the rise, but certainly these birds, I think, are going to give you the biggest spectacle if you're one of the lucky few that can fly birds on the soar and have enough game so they stay above, expecting a flush. That would be mind-blowing. I've only seen it with our display bird. Absolutely exciting, but he's not meant to be doing it. A lovely lady called Margaret, many years ago, bought a female Chilean blue. Trained him up herself, and she said, Dave, I'm going to hunt hares with it like you guys and your eagles. And she brought a female. Why wouldn't you? It's going to be bigger. Its feet are much bigger. If you're going to go hunting with a Chilean blue, maybe a female's for you, because remember, you're soaring. But then again, yeah, you've got a lot of rabbits, a male is going to do the job. But she chose a female. She wanted to hunt brown hares. She wanted to fly it out the hood and off the fist. Off the fist, out of the hood, and off the fist at other game, ground game. I've only went out with Margaret once, many, many years ago. We were invited to an estate by some gamekeepers, a really big shooting estate. And the keeper said, this place is brimming with hares when we go out at night. Brimming with hares. Yeah, I think we had 3 flights in an entire day amongst 3 eagles. It was absolutely desolate. It was one of the worst days out I've ever had for not finding any game, believe it or not. But they were shooting men. There was a lot of them. They were on their walkie-talkies. Shooting men that shoot birds don't understand that you've got to be quiet when you're hunting ground game with 8-inch long ears. It's really weird. Shooting men that don't do any falconry really find it hard to understand what we do as falconers, for sure. But I did see a flight off the fist from her Chilean blue. It bowled the hare over her. It was really limited to what it had caught back then. It was still semi-juvenile plumage. Oh, it's so close. And it proved to me that these birds are capable from a standing start. They actually can shift. If you want to just catch hares with an eagle, a golden eagle is unrivaled. If you want to catch hares with a bird of prey, a decent female harrishawk, and even a female goshawk are going to catch plenty of hares. If you want to catch plenty of hares, get a gun and shoot them. It's the old thing. If you want to fly a Chilean blue at hares, they can do it, and they can fly off the fist. I'd want to hear more from you guys. Are you doing that? Because Margaret's the only person I've ever been out with hunting with a Chilean blue eagle buzzard off the fist. In other parts of the world, they catch animals, fox-sized, jackal-sized animals with females. These things are monstrously capable predators. They are monstrously capable falconry birds. I can't tell you much more. This channel is always about what I've done, or very much secondhand, but seeing it for real. Same as my reptile channel. I don't just make videos about what I've read online, what someone else has told me. So that's what I can tell you so far. Comment below if you're hunting with a Chilean blue and tell me what part of the world you're in, because these birds here in the UK are massively underflown, understudied. People haven't got all the info and they haven't cracked the nut yet, just through lack of hours in the field. But there's falconers out there that must be successfully hunting from waiting on with Chilean blue eagle buzzards. There is no other bird like their shape, ultimately designed to wait on, hunting from a soar. They're very, very loyal if you train them right. But off the fist, they can move much faster than you think. And you only have to look at their feet to tell you these are proper, capable birds. No scavenging beauty here. These are capable, eagle-sized, buzzard-like birds for sure. Something we do need to touch on, parent reared or imprint. Well, unless you are superb at rearing imprints successfully with no noise, an imprint Chilean blue will drive you insane without a good set of ear defenders. There's nothing to be gained. There's nothing to be gained from imprint a Chilean blue eagle unless you want to produce young artificially inseminated from that bird when it's older, or imprints are your thing. You're one of the falconers that just prefers imprints. There are reasons, they're the reasons you want to fly it, and you want to fly an imprint. Do you need to imprint one? Absolutely not. These birds are rock steady in the right hands, absolutely chilled out. You won't get much more chilled out than a Chilean blue once it's settled down. That's up to you. Like and subscribe. Hope it's been interesting, and I hope I've squeezed in enough B-roll to stop you having to stare at this ugly mug and some beautiful Chilean blue stuff instead. See you soon.